So I just gotta be real about something. I'm gonna be a little vulnerable. One thing about me is I have a very negative self image. That's, pretty much, it's not the easiest thing to admit, right? But I have always had a negative view about myself. And the reason why is very intricate, but I'm gonna try to make it short. I believe the number one reason why I've always had issues with my image is because of the environment that I was raised in. And mainly, if I want to put it short, I was a child that was born in wedlock around a bunch of relatives who weren't. So I inherently had haters. And every time I did something bad, of course, they were there to always scrutinize and criticize that. But every time I did something well, I was always told that, okay, it's not that big of a deal. You can let it go. Now, I'm not saying that anytime a person criticizes someone, it's because they're legitimate, because for most people, that's not the case, right? Most people aren't born to two married parents. So I've learned. But the reason why I say my situation in particular is because everybody has their own unique reason as to why people want them, the individual, to feel bad about themselves. It's kind of like people try to find a way to level the playing field. So if you do something really, really well, people always want to find a way to make you feel like, oh, whatever you did, whatever you said, it's not that big of a deal. Anybody could do that. Or about time you did that. Or, something to that effect. Now, like I said before, the reason why I brought that up, I also wanted to lean on this point. It's very important for people to be honest about why people look down on them. And it's very important for people to think about the origins of where it came from. A lot of us have childhood traumas and we carry them on. And a lot of times we carry these childhood traumas to place blame rather than to identify who we were in the story, right? So that's an approach that I take. In my opinion, I felt like I was automatically born in a lion's den because I had so many people who were related to me, closely related, siblings even, but they were so jealous. And it went both ways. I mean, there are so many different reasons why I was jealous of my siblings and other family members. But the fact that I'm so comfortable and grounded within myself, I wasn't able to be this way because I had support. And this is significant. I had a mother and a father, and after my father passed, I had a stepfather who allowed me to express my emotions and be honest with myself, and a mother who helped me manage it as a woman, right? Even to this day, like the number one thing I get picked on for is having like a masculine frame, things like that. Well, my mother had a pretty deep voice and broad shoulders. My grandmother on my father's side of the family, I looked at a picture of her in her Sunday's best, and she looked like a man in a dress. No disrespect, but I'm like, oh, okay. So, like, times when people poke and pick at me, you know, I know where I come from, and I'm very much loved by the people that I come from, right? In contrast, a lot of my family members who were products of failed relationships, they didn't have that luxury. They didn't have people they could go to and say, hey, I'm getting picked on because I got a really, really big nose. And, if you're being raised around, let's say your step parent who has a very narrow nose, and your mom who has a very narrow nose, and your biological father has a very wide nose, You're just being raised around narrow nosed people and you start feeling inferior to those folks because that's all you see. And they look down on you, and you might think it's because you have a wide nose. No, it's because you're not one of them. And they don't mean to be harmful. They're just doing this thing called groupthink. They're all a part of a group. They all feel socially accepted. If they were around your father's family with their narrow nose and your nose is wide, and your father and his family's nose is wide, most likely they'd be, ousted or picked on or looked down on as well. But anyway, that's just an example. It's so many parts, but I'm really trying to minimize this. I wanted to say this. My negative self image is not to be confused with my self esteem. I have incredibly high self esteem. I absolutely adore and love myself. And oftentimes, I do feel bad for people because a lot of people struggle with self love. I do not. And I'm so grateful that I don't struggle with that. That's a trait that I don't have. However, naturally, as a human being, I want to be accepted. People are social creatures, right? When I come across to people, I want people to receive me the way that I thought I was perceived to be. And oftentimes, when I communicate, I don't get across to people what I envisioned, right? Okay. Now, as far as me, I'm a strong believer that self esteem is from self. So I love me. But when I interact with people, there are so many different ways that people think, right? And I respect everybody's mindset. But the issue with me is that when I constantly get feedback that I was not, seeking out to get, it can be extremely disheartening. It can be very disturbing to me, like depressing, even, right? So, okay, that's on the shelf. This is a vulnerability about me that I'm starting to peel back, especially with putting this camera in my face and talking on the internet. Something significant happened a couple days ago. I had some free time, had some off time from the kids, and I like to drive. Like to drive around, get out of the house, enjoy time being away from the kids. I like to Uber. It's a hobby of mine, and it also helps to fund my content creation, my equipment, so on and so forth. Even get a few bills out of the way. Just a little gift to my husband. He pays bills, so sometimes I like to take care of a bill. So when he goes to look at the bills, it's one less bill. It really warms my heart to do that type of thing. But anyway, oftentimes I have to deal with how people interact with me. Of course, Ubering, right? Um, and like I said, it's that constant, man, I wasn't communicating that. Man, how did that person get that? Man, why is this person treating me this way? Right? And there was a time when I was so desensitized, I just accepted being treated in ways that I did not like, right? But now that I have a daughter in particular, I have stopped being complacent in how people receive me because I don't want my daughter to grow up that way. Some of you may have noticed, like, I usually don't wear earrings, but my daughter, she loves her earrings. We recently got our ears pierced, and she loves her earrings. And she started messing around with my ears and, like, wear your earrings. And I love having a daughter because they just make they make a mother feel so empowered. But anyway, so I started wearing my earrings, and I noticed people started approaching me very differently. And then I went a little crazier, and I started wearing, like, oftentimes I wear my husband's shirts. They're very comfortable. But I decided to wear like a woman's shirt. um, and people were so much nicer to me. And then I just went a little more crazy. So I went to go buy some brighter colored shirts. Now, because of my lack of desire to be seen, I found myself as I got older wearing dark colors, especially shirts, trying not to be noticed. Well, I wore a brighter shirt. I looked in the mirror. I had two kids recently. I got a little gut on me. And for the first time, I felt like I need to do something about my image. Now, oftentimes when people see me, they see my physique and they see my build, they don't think of me as like obese or anything like that. But I even look at it like some of the videos that I post, I look at my face, I look at my jawline, things like that. There was a time when I used to run, miles at a time. Before I joined the Air Force, I used to jog. It used to be a hobby of mine. I still like jogging, right? I used to do sit ups and push ups. I used to do pull ups to pass the time just for fun, just to see how many I could crank out. And yeah, life be lifing. But at the same time, when I put on that bright colored shirt, instantly I thought to myself, this is unfair to my husband. Because there's no way I would deal with him having his stomach poking out of his shirt. Now, I know a lot of people might say, oh, first thing you thought about was him. Now, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, of course, I deal with me all the time. I deal with how I feel constantly, right? I know I'm not where I want to be when it comes to my health, and I'm gonna start working on that. By the way, um, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna work. I'm gonna work hard. But at the same time, it's like the reason why I thought about him instantly was because I've had all the time in the world to deal with me. And he deals with his body all the time. He makes sure that he's taking care of himself all the time. Even as a truck driver, he find a way to walk or he'll cut things out of his diet if he feels like his weight is getting out of hand, things like that. Now, granted, I did have two children back to back, but at the same time, my husband's the breadwinner. I don't work for a living. So it doesn't make sense for me to step on a scale and the numbers just keep ticking up like that. That's just me personally. I know a lot of people, this is probably an unpopular take, but it's not as much about image as it's about the example I'm setting for my children. The fact that I can't move the way I used to move. I can't do what I want to do. Like, you know, I'll even go as far as to say, I feel like I can hear the weight in my voice when I talk at times. And I have this feeling that if I can't throw something on and feel good in my birthday suit underneath, there's a problem. Now, that's just me personally. There are things that I could not control when I was a kid. There are circumstances that I could not move as a child. As a result of that, I make sure that I'm very careful with my children. And I'm extremely careful with my husband because I know that's my family that I'm in charge of. But as an adult, there are things that I can control. I'm going to start controlling them now. From here on out, man, I think one of the biggest secrets to women wearing men's clothing is they don't know how to dress themselves or even their image. Their body is not where they wanted to be. And these shirts, they're comfy. When I looked at my stomach protruding, I was like, oh no, right? But yeah, it just got me thinking. So I'm going to fix that.